So I want to talk to you about an interesting video. They have videos from Colin and Samir. I've already kind of highlighted them before. And so this is kind of weird because I'm going to talk about their video who's talking about someone else's video. But they're talking about a creator that I actually don't know. And that creator is Bo Burnham. So this guy is an online creator, I guess, music, video, and he made a documentary and kind of a comedy that he did in one room in his house over the pandemic over the last year, and sold that video to Netflix. So it's streaming on Netflix. And he does some commentary in this video that I want to highlight, right? And as Colin and Samir noticed, it's very pertinent to the idea of boredom and the life that we have now with the internet. You know, I'm 40 years old, so I grew up without the internet in the beginning. My children, they've never known life without the internet. So there's a big disconnect between what it was like pre-internet to now. So I just want to start out. Let's listen to what Colin and Samir have to say.
And with every vignette and every song, it continues to hit the theme, really, that the internet and social media have had a toxic impact on all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so interesting, right? It's amazing that this is an internet creator, right? He grew up, he's, I believe, like 30. So he did experience a little bit of non-internet life. And now his profession really is making videos, making music. And he's got where he is because of the internet, because of the platform. But he's being retrospective, right? He's looking back and seeing, like, how is the internet, how is this usage of everything impacting our lives? It's funny because we're going to talk about a song that he says here in a second. And the idea about that we have at our hand at any moment, right? We have a phone. You can look up stuff. When you disagree with people, you can look it up. I can remember when I got my wife her first smartphone, and she asked me a question like, what do you think about this or that? And I'm like, well, look it up on your phone. I tell her to just Google it real fast, and she can look it up, and which was a change for us because we stayed with kind of some of the older phones, some text phones, but we didn't get smartphones because we knew the impact and the time that they could take as you start to stare at that screen. And now I say something or we ponder something, and next thing I know, I look over, she's looking it up to verify or to learn about it. So much information is right at our fingertips. But is that healthy is the question.
Mm-hmm. I think the interesting thing, though, is that the mere existence of the special speaks to the incredible power of the internet, mm-hmm. and how it's this contradictory sort of thing where it is equal parts toxic as it is empowering.
Yeah, I think the special itself was meta, right? Like him creating something for the internet while he's talking about the toxic effects of the internet, while he's self-editing himself, while he's, you know, creating these scenes with lighting and fixing his hair. Is just like, it's exactly what he's talking about, why the internet is bad. He's doing a thing for the internet for other people to watch.
Okay,
and
so
there's a couple things that stuck out to me. There's one song in there that was about the internet, and it was the main line was like, can I interest you in anything and everything all of the time? Yeah. It's an amazing song.
Could I interest you in everything all of the time?
The way he did it was like almost like he was a genie. You know, it reminded me of like an Aladdin type song, like a musical where it was.
Yeah, in any moment that we can look up stuff, and that how can that impact us, right? Can we look up information? Can we verify information, what people say, which then makes us non-trustworthy of what people say, which might be good because we don't necessarily just believe everything we hear. But then we have this dependency to think if we read it on the internet, then it's true, right? And we're not really even fact-checking what we read. We don't know where it comes from. And it can impact our everyday life of what we believe, how we interact with people. And in the same way, there's a lot of information on the internet that's not good for us. Issues with children, of course, pornography, all these different things that are at the fingertips of anybody at any moment. All they have to do is start searching for it, and you can find it. But the key that I want to talk about in this video is boredom. So let's get to that.
And see, you know, whatever we want in an instant. And there's a line in there where he says, boredom is a crime. And I thought that was a really interesting thought and almost like observation of myself, where I recognized, like, when I was a kid, boredom was this pathway to do so many things, to go outside and explore and do anything. And in any moment, like, I have anxiety about being bored. If I'm standing in line for something, I'm on my phone.
Yeah, boredom is.
Yeah, boredom is such an amazing thing. Now, nobody wants to be bored. Now we want to be entertained at every moment of the day. I find myself doing this. I'm driving my car and I'll be driving to stoplight, right? You come to the start, boom, I grab my phone and I start looking, right? I don't have any reason to look. There's no reason why I can't wait for 20, 30 seconds to wait for the light to turn, but it's instinct that I grab it and start reading it. When I grew up on a farm, and you think about it on the country, one of the things that we had to do was drive tractors, right? You got to mow grass, you have to drive tractors. And that's just hours and hours of sitting on this thing, bored out of your mind. Now, if you were lucky, you had a radio, right? You would be able to listen to the radio, but again, you didn't get on demand. You didn't get to listen to what you wanted to listen to. You had to listen to whatever the radio played. Unlike today, where you can make your own playlists, where you can pick your songs, everything is so easy and you get to listen to what you want. But it was just a time of boredom. I know that as a kid, we were more creative and did more things because of boredom. We had ideas, we problem solved, right? Because you had to have situations where you didn't know how to do it and you had to figure it out yourself. Now, I love that I can look up almost anything on the internet. I have fixed my car, I fixed my washing machine, I fixed my dryer, I fixed my sink, not because I know how to do it, but because I can look up a video on YouTube and see how to do it, and then I do it. I'm able to mimic that because I'm mechanically inclined. I'm able to follow along those directions, and it saves me a lot of money. I'm so grateful. Just this last weekend, me and my son Dennis, we changed the rotors, changed the brakes, changed the lug bolts, right? Because they broke off on my car. We changed that. I've never done that in my life, but I watched a video on how to do it, and then I went out there and I did it. And that would not have happened before. If I didn't have someone to show me how to do it, I would have been scared to try it. And I can remember that in my early 20s, changing just an alternator, and I'd never done it before, right? And I'm buying a manual or a book is what you had to buy back then, but I bought that book and then figured it out. But if you didn't have someone to show that, you wouldn't know what to do. And now I don't need someone that in my life to show me because people have made videos and it's on the internet. But it can stop us from problem solving. Young people don't know how to problem solve. So in our house, we've had two rules, right? Two rules over the years. One that we implemented was no electronics during the week. So my kids, they hated it, right? But during school, Monday through Friday, no electronics. That's TV included. And they would have to play. They would go outside and play. They'd have to play with stuff inside. They'd have to figure it out. When they were allowed to use electronics, we have another rule, and that rule is you can't play on electronics in the car, right? That's, to me, is like the boredom time. I make them play or sit in the car nice and bored in a car looking out the window because I think they need it. I think it helps them. And what I know, what I have seen is a difference in my children. When they would go outside and play, they would play games, they would make believe, they would entertain themselves, while the rest of the neighborhood kids would just sit there and complain and want to go inside. But my kids were actually doing stuff. Same thing in the car. My two boys, they role play, they mimic different videos or even animes that they've seen, and they just work through that and they have fun. They can entertain themselves because of that. I know a big thing, you think about eureka moments. In the old days, you would say like eureka, right? Like it's a guy in a bathtub came up with an idea. And the reason that ideas come to us during, for instance, in the shower or times of inactivity is our subconscious brain is working on problems that we have, right? But if we never allow our subconscious brain to work because we're constantly entertaining ourselves and we're constantly looking at a phone, how is it supposed to work? Second, how do kids learn how to process emotions? How do they? If they're constantly staring at a phone, if they're constantly playing a video game and something bad happens, they're just distracting themselves from the event and are not able to process it. They don't learn how to process it, and as they get older, that can have such a detrimental effect. I know the kids today, right, are suffering from depression at a higher rate than ever before. Kids today are committing suicide at a higher rate than ever before. And have we really thought that what's the impact of children spending all their time staring at a passive entertainment instead of active entertainment, right? Because all they have to do is stare at it, and they're absorbing this entertainment. They're not doing anything. How that is impacting their psyche, how that is impacting their regulation of hormones, how's that impacting the way that they handle their emotions? Because they don't know how to. They don't get their way, they get upset, but they don't know how to process through it, and then they distract themselves with that. If you've ever met someone or dealt with someone that has issues that is mental health with maybe depression, the key thing that they try and do is distract themselves. And I've seen it, right? They're just like, I don't like this feeling, and so they do that. Myself, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I know what it's like as an addict to then try and numb a pain, right? And in the same way that phone can then distract from a pain. And you're not able to process it and work through it. And that is unhealthy in the long run. I can even think, man, I guess it's been a few years now, but traveling, I used to travel, right? I haven't traveled in the last couple of years. Of course, the pandemic limited that a lot. But 2-3 years ago, and I can remember people watching, going to the airport, being places, and parents being sitting there on their phone while they have a little kid that's 3 or 4 years old trying to play because they don't have a phone, and they're running around, mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy, look at me, look at me. And those parents barely even acknowledge those kids. They're just sitting there on the phone texting, or they're reading or doing whatever, totally just ignoring them, right? They're not present in the situation. They're not where they are, right? If we're constantly looking at our phones, we can't see the sky. We're not looking at the woods. We're not noticing the cars, the people, how people's facial responses are. And that is such a big problem. I've been watching some interesting content recently about Gen Z and about how Gen Z are very about connection, which is so interesting, right? But they connect heavily through phone and through digital media. One thing that I know that is a pet peeve for me is FaceTime or video chatting in public. And that is such a Gen Z thing, right? They walk around with the phone staring at it in public, making a lot of noise. To me, it's annoying because it's like I get to hear the whole conversation and see everything, and they're not keeping it private. But nonetheless, they like video chat because they do have that connection they're able to see. I was watching a little bit about TikTok, and they say even they like TikTok partly because they're like, I could do that. I could make a video like that. I get to see a person. So TikTok is one of the closest ways that teenagers kind of connect to another person that they're not actually talking to, versus videos like this, or maybe other videos on YouTube that are a little more highly polished. TV, for instance, right? They're like, well, I can't do that. That's not as relatable, so they don't connect as well. That's why they like things like TikTok or Instagram or stories, right? They don't like the polished stuff. But then we jump into this older people, and we like the polished stuff. We like the more movies because we're trying to escape, right? Typically, we're trying to escape reality where they're trying to connect, which is so interesting because they've grown up with the internet. That is their life. That is what they do. So I leave you with this, that the studies have shown that kids need boredom time because it helps problem solving. Even an artist with unlimited resources won't create. They need boundaries to help them drive their creativity, because if they have to do it within a bounds, they have to become creative on how to solve that problem. It's important for kids to have that time. That as adults, in the same way, we need to recognize that because phones have replaced TV. So plenty of parents in the old days would just sit and watch TV. Stay-at-home parents would sit and watch TV sometimes and not do anything. That we can fall in that same trap, and it stops our interactions with other people. Are we distracting ourselves from the issues, or are we facing them on? If we need help, then we may need counseling. We might need to go somewhere. But I would encourage you to think about that and how it impacts you yourself, and how it may impact children that you have and care about. So with that, I appreciate you stopping by. Make sure you subscribe, like the video. Give me some pointers of some stuff that you would like to hear in the future, and I'll get back to you. God bless.